ودي لي سلامي يا رايح للحرم، وادعي لي وسلم لي على هادي الأمم. انظر للكعبة يا محلاها، نور وجلال يغشاها. انظر
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Hajj AM here on INX Prime DSTV channel 345. My name is Muhammad Chinara, and for the next few days, I'll be with you during the morning slot as we bring you Hajj from the Holy Lands, where we'll be speaking to ulama, we'll be speaking to Hajis on the ground there as the excitement is building. But this morning, once again, I'm delighted to be joined by Maulana Sulaimaan Ravat as we discussing what defines a successful Haji. Maulana, assalamu alaikum, welcome back.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Always a pleasure.
So, over the last few days, we've discussed the divine selection, a complete reset. I think today is another interesting topic we're going to be having, which would be transformation, which is breaking and rebuilding yourself.
Often you hear of people, right? They say, I'm moving into a new house, but I can't go right now. I bought this house and we're going to put it down. So I bought the house, but it's a total break and rebuilding. And they see it in a very positive sense, right? No one sees it negatively. It's because you know what you want to be. And what you have is a step in that direction, but it needs to be taken down totally and rebuilt. Now, Hajj gives you that opportunity for a prolonged period in your life. You've developed, but both positively and negatively. And if you don't need a total breakdown and rebuilding, you need massive adjustment. So again, if you use the example or the comparison of a house, sometimes they don't break down the entire house. They take down certain sections or certain walls. But when you re-look at the house after they've done the renovations and the extensions, it looks like a total different house. If you have to look at that Google image from before and the Google image from after, you won't say it's the same house, but perhaps the foundation is still the same and the boundary walls are still the same and some of the internal walls may be the same. So Allah Ta'ala gives us an opportunity that when you go for Hajj, you are going to be broken in some way or the other. And we sometimes see it as a negative and it frustrates us. And it maybe even puts us during the Hajj journey in a bit of a negative mindset. And you start to then feel guilty that, what's happening with me? Why am I having these negative vibes, these negative emotions, these negative feelings when I'm on such a positive journey? Building is messy and breaking is messier, right? So again, the analogy of the house in front of us. When you're breaking, there's dust, there's noise, there's concrete, there's rubble that needs to be removed. And when you're building also, plastering, painting, it's messy. When you see the finished product, it's all worth it, right? So Allah Ta'ala will test you. You're out of your comfort zone. You can be staying in the best hotel. You could have bought the best package, but there are so many things that are out of your control. Sometimes as simple a thing as waiting for the lift, right? And I see you chuckle because you know what I'm getting at. You see that lift in your 7-star hotel go past the floor and come past the floor and go past, and you're like, what? And you're on the 32nd floor, so taking the stairs is not an option. And then just as the lift doors open, it's full. So it finally came to your floor, but it's got no space for you. And then eventually when the lift doors open and there's some space, some other guy comes running in and takes your space, and you there, and you angry would be an understatement. You're seething, and you're thinking to yourself, I've paid all this money. I've come all this way, and now this must happen to me. I'm getting late to get to the haram. And eventually you get into the lift, and you get down, and now when you come there, the guy with a smile, just as you're approaching, he closes the barricade. Sorry, go read the upstairs. And you maybe wanted to be downstairs, or you wanted to be in a spot where you could see the Kaaba, or you wanted to get into Masjid al-Nabawi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and with a smile, he just closed the door as you're approaching, and he says, that's outside. Now, what is your mental state at that time? You're angry, you're upset, you're frustrated, you're irritated, you're agitated, and there's many other words that I can use to describe. And at that moment, you may think to yourself, this is so negative. In reality, it's not. All of that happened by the decree of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. A positive experience doesn't mean every moment will be positive. Again, going back to the example of building the house, there's going to be all that negativity to result in a positive conclusion. So that's just one example. There's going to be multitudes of other examples, right? The agent will mess up somewhere with the booking. The hotel will mess up somewhere in terms of what they're supposed to give you, not supposed to give you. All of these things are meant to break you, to break your ego. to break your self-reliance. You see, at home, some people are very diligent, and you see them suffering more on a journey like this. Because at home, you can control things, right? It's your business, it's your home, it's your car. You make sure that you leave at a specific time. You're never late. You're a person who's never late. All of a sudden, you come for Hajj. You're sitting in the bus. You have to go for ziyarat. You know that, listen, we have to leave on time in order to get back for Zohar Salah. We're going to Badr, as an example. One Haji is chilling there in the foyer, finishing off his cave. Another Hajia, I went to pop into the shop there to see if she can catch a quick bargain. And the bus driver and the agent won't move until every person is accounted for on the bus. And you sitting there and your blood is boiling because you're a time-conscious person. You're not a tardy person. And you're looking at that watch and you're saying, I don't want to miss my Zohar Salah in the Haram. And what's wrong with these people? And some Hajis then explode, right? And they lose themselves and they're screaming and shouting, and then the argument breaks out and all of that. So Allah is teaching you that it's not about you.
And you're not in control.
And you're not in control, right? At home, you have some degree of control. Even if there's variables, I'm traveling from Joburg to Durban. If there's an issue there, if there's an issue, you factor it all in because you're in very familiar territory. Yeah, how much you're going to factor in? So you must avoid, I always tell the Hajis, avoid one extreme where you just super chill. Nah, Hajj, I go with the flow. No. Then you're going to look for problems. You must prepare to a reasonable extent. But don't go to the other extreme where because you think at your home, in your community, in your town, in your country, you can super micromanage every eventuality that you're going to be able to do it here. Allah wants to show you out of control. Allah wants to show you it's not about you. It's about something bigger. Allah wants to remind you, you're just an individual. This is a number. You're 1 out of 1.5 million, but then you get 1 out of 2 billion, and then again you're 1 out of 8 billion, and all of that is only in terms of now. How many came before, and how many will come after? Who are you? You're just a number. You're inconsequential, right? So Allah wants to break that pride. Allah wants to break that ego. Allah wants to teach us that no matter how well you plan or what resources you have, there are things that are going to be out of your control. So Hajj will often take you out of your comfort zone. Now, you got two options in terms of how you react. I'm not saying you must enjoy when others allow being late and say, no, well done. I'm not saying you must be happy if you're waiting for the lift and it's going past you up and down. Anger will be natural. Frustration, irritation will be natural. But you can either say, right, I'm going to let it get to me and then I'm going to lose control. Or I'm going to understand that this is Allah breaking me so Allah can rebuild me as a person with greater perseverance, greater tolerance, greater perspective. I come back more refined in terms of my character, in terms of my overall approach and attitude to life.
I think many times people forget it is a character building exercise, if I could put it in simpler words. It's an exercise of us learning how to behave, even with our spouses, with people in our groups, because as you know, you're going to be in a group with different people with different backgrounds. And it's so difficult sometimes because you're not used to it. You go to a hotel, or if you go on a holiday to Durban or to Cape Town, it's generally South Africans there. You kind of know who they are. But here in Saudi, in Makkah, Medina, as you said, somebody was just going to walk into the lift, not worry about waiting in a queue for 10 minutes. That's how it is. And I think in one of the episodes coming forward, we're going to speak about sabr, which I think is really important. This also ties into the sabr part of it. But Maulana, Jazakallah so much for your time once again. Inshallah, tomorrow we'll have another interesting conversation. I think we're speaking about submission to the will of Allah and to the commands of Allah. To our viewers out there, we hope you enjoyed this morning's segment with Maulana Sulaimaan Ravat. We're going to take a short break now, so stay tuned.
ودي لي سلامي يا رايح للحرم وادعي لي وسلم لي على هادي الأمم انظر للكعبة يا محلاها نور وجلال يغشاها انظر
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the AM Hajj Report. My name is Mohammed Shinara. We hope you enjoyed the first segment, and today we're going to be discussing health during Hajj, and I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Salim Parker. Dr. Parker, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Hajj AM.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shukran for the invitation and opportunity to be on your show.
Thank you so much for joining us. We know Hajj is quite a physical journey that people undertake. Many times people think, we're just going for Hajj, we're going to have a 6-week holiday. Not many people realize how much walking and how much of a physical toll it takes on your body, as well as the mental toll it takes on you. But I want to speak about physical preparation at the onset. What physical preparation needs to be done before somebody undertakes this pilgrimage?
A'udhu billahi minash shaitani rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Let's just consider that some of the Hujjaj have left already. So, and it might sound that it's too late, but it's never too late to actually start physically preparing for this journey, which we really consider to be the once in a lifetime journey. What we advise Hujjaj, once they've made the niyat, is to start preparing and to start exercising. And people often ask us, what do we need to do? What level of physical fitness should we have? And what we normally advise people is that as much as you can, as long as you're comfortable. But let's look at the practicalities of when you are in Saudi Arabia, and let's look at, for example, when you're in Makkah for the first few days, and when you go to the Haram and back 5 times a day, just to perform your 5 daily salahs, that's already up to 10 kilometers. So yes, this is staggered; it's broken into 5 parts, but at any given time, going to the Haram and back for just one waqt is going to be about 1.5 to 2 kilometers, simply because of the amount of traffic there is and because of the diversions that the Saudis implement when you try to access the Haram and when you try to leave it as well to go back to your hotel. So we're looking at being able to do at least 10 kilometers a day during the days in Makkah as well as in Medina. Most of the hotels in Medina are also situated some distance from the Haram. So you are again looking at a kilometer to there and back every day. And that's about 10 kilometers. But then we have to take into consideration that you're moving from South Africa, which is in a relatively cool period at the moment, to Saudi Arabia. Today, for example, in Makkah, the temperature is 44 degrees. So we were going from, if you're in Cape Town, today's cold, it's winter, it's 17 degrees. So our Hujjaj who are leaving in the next couple of days will be going to temperatures of 44 degrees with humidity. So we're not only looking at the physical capability of the Hujjaj, we're also looking at the adaptability. And that takes a bit longer if you're not that fit. So again, the old story, like I mentioned before, is to be physically prepared before you even leave. Let's look at another part of Hajj, where the physical toll really can extract quite a lot of energy from the Hujjaj. All Hujjaj, no matter which package they have, will be put onto Muzdalifah. After being on Arafah, they will have transport taking them to Muzdalifah. There's no guarantee from Muzdalifah to Mina. 90% of our Hujjaj have to walk. And that distance is between 7 and 9 kilometers. And that is continuous. Of course, you can stop, but it's one continuous distance that the Haji has to cover. So there we again looking at 7 to 9 kilometers. And if it's with diversions and so forth, we're again looking up to 10 kilometers. So what we in Cape Town have done, and we've strongly encouraged in the other centers as well, is for our pilgrims who've been accepted, as soon as they found out that they accepted, is to start walking. And most of our Hujjaj knew about 2 months beforehand, during Ramadan, that they will be going on Hajj. So we started a program where we, after 6 weeks, got them fit enough to walk 10 kilometers within 2 hours. So that is the ballpark fitness level that we normally talk about, being able to walk 10 kilometers between 2 hours and 2.5 hours. That is the average level of fitness that people should have. Why do we say that? Again, if we've done plenty of studies previously, which showed that the average Haji walks about 25 kilometers during the days of Hajj. So this is the physical part that you mentioned. And we've done studies before, which has been published in international journals, which shows that the fitter a person is, the more likely they are going to have, the less likely they are going to have infections such as respiratory infections, which 90% of our Hujjaj suffer from, and illnesses as well. So it's worthwhile being physically fit just to do the physical demands of the Hajj. But we've also shown that if a person is physically fit, mentally they are better prepared to undertake this journey as well.
I think it's really important. If you're physically fit and mentally, you'll be more prepared. We do know a lot of Hajis do go with chronic conditions. We know we have a lot of older Hajis also making the pilgrimage every year. And we also know this year that we're not going to have the so-called Sahu clinics available in Mecca and Medina and also in the camps in Mina. How do we navigate around these new rules of Hajj when it comes to health, especially not knowing that we're not going to have the Sahu clinics around, and most of the Hajjis will probably have to use public facilities?
Right. Firstly, the South clinics, and alhamdulillah, I was privileged to be part of it for a number of years. We used to be a primary care clinic. Now, let's take into consideration that we're talking of the physical aspects of Hajj, we're talking about the mental and medical aspects of Hajj, but 90% of Hujjaj will have an uneventful Hajj. Yes, 90% will get some flu, they'll get respiratory infections, which can be treated at what we call the primary care centers, like the South medical missions used to be able to do. Now, they'll have the Hujjaj from this year onwards will have to go to the Saudi clinics, and there are plenty of them around. Now, the Saudi medical facilities are world-class when it comes to severe medical conditions. Someone has a heart attack, and I can vouch for it. I've had someone who had a heart attack, and within 4 hours, they had stents put in. We had other people who had, for example, strokes. They were immediately seen to, and they did not even have side effects of the stroke because they were treated immediately in high-class facilities, and these are really world-class experts that are there. So these are for the extreme cases where no one has to worry. Medical facilities in the hospitals are absolutely free, firstly, and secondly, they are really of superior class. It's where the average person gets coughs and colds and bronchitis and cuts and so forth. We remember we're looking at about 2 million Hajis going this particular year. And a lot of, because the facilities are free, it's the primary care centers are often overcrowded. People will go for the blood pressure checks, even though they don't have high blood pressure. They have their sugar tested, even though they're not diabetics. This is just the reality of Hujjaj when they have time, especially in places like Azizia. So if someone has some real illness like a bad bronchitis, he's going to be sitting 200 other people waiting for 1 or 2 doctors to see them. So the primary care is going to be overcrowded, but it is there. And they have what we call a screening facility, where the nurses who initially see to a person as they come in to the unit will ascertain, this sounds like a heart attack. No, we've got to have him seen immediately. Unfortunately, if it's something like a minor sore throat and so forth, then they're going to be further down the queue. And they might have to wait hours and hours before they're seen to. And this is just going to be the reality of it. It's because we don't have the medical clinics available to us anymore. We're going to be competing with hundreds of other countries for the same facilities.
Yeah, that's going to be a very big difference. I think many South Africans were actually spoiled having the Sahu clinics, and we know the amount of good work those clinics have done. Speaking about the crowds and the heat that you alluded to a bit earlier on in the interview, we do know there's going to be approximately 2 million Hujjaj. Just some practical advice to our Hajis in navigating crowds, because walking into the Haram where there's going to be 1.5 to 2 million people converging on the day to go and make Tawaful Ifada, or to make your Tawaful Ziyarah, or to make your Tawaful Wida, even going to do the pelting of the Jamarat, it is a very taxing situation, especially for older people. And it's very daunting walking in and seeing this throng of crowds coming there, walking towards the Jamarat bridge or walking into the Haram, especially in Mecca during the 5 days of Hajj. What are your advices to the Hajis, practical advices?
Right. The first one I always allude to is before Hajj. And I've got this mantra of saying that when you're in Azizia a couple of days before Hajj, give me 3 days of rest and I'll give you 5 days of Hajj. And I think that is a very good exchange that you can have for, because you need to rest. Now, we just had a couple of marathons in Cape Town, for example. And what do the athletes do the week before the event? They slow down. They rest, they give their bodies enough time to recuperate from the training. Similarly, Hajj is the one biggest journey that any Muslim can undertake. So you should be physically and mentally at your peak. But a couple of days before Hajj starts, 3-4 days before Hajj, rest as much as possible. there's going to be nearly 2 million people in Makkah all wanting to go to the Haram. So if you're in Azizia, for example, and you want to go to the Haram, you're competing against 2 million people. Azizia is part of the Haram. It's part of the greater Haram area. So stay where you are for 3 days at least. Recuperate from your illnesses or flus that you had and build up your energies. So that is prior to Hajj starting. Secondly, as far as Hajj is concerned, Hajj is Arafah. We all know that. So once you're on Arafah, Allah's granted you the privilege of being there, to be one of, only one of 2 million people to be there of the 2 billion Muslims who are on earth. So you've had your Hajj. Every other of our rituals, every other aspect, whether it's pelting, whether it's doing your tawaf, can either be delayed, or slaughtering of the sheep or shaving of it. You can either delay it, and I'm not encouraging it unnecessarily, but if the crowds are big and your agent as well as the police indicate that you should not pelt after Zawal, for example, listen to the authorities. Listen, because your health and your life is more important than doing things exactly as our Prophet Nabi Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did. And there are so many mercies that Allah has given us. So if it's too full, if it's too busy, or if it's too hot at 12 o'clock during the days of Tashriq, don't pelt out at 1 o'clock. Wait till it's cooler and go when your group, for example, goes together. That's just one of the aspects that we can pay some attention to. Similarly, doing your tawaf or ziyarah, again, it's a compulsory act, but it doesn't have to be done exactly at a certain time. You have 3 days, 4 days to do it. If you are sick, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so merciful that we've had plenty of instances where people perform their tawaf a week afterwards because they were so sick. And again, I'm not encouraging unnecessarily to delay it, but if there's a reason for you not to go immediately, hang 10. You've had your Hajj, you've been on Arafah. Hajj is Arafah. Every other of our rituals, we can take out time if necessary, or we can get even someone else to do it. If it's a very sickly person, you can't go pelt, you can appoint someone else in the group to go pelt for them. So that's the second part of it. Thirdly, listen to the authorities. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the way that the authorities divert the crowds. I mean, you're really at the gate, and as soon as you reach a gate, they block it off and tell it to they walk 2 kilometers to the next entrance. But again, there's sound reasons for them doing that. We've had stampedes in 2006. We had again in 2015. Many people passed away during that time. So the authorities, they're monitoring the situation in real time. So if they are diverting crowds, there's a reason for that. And my final one is that the heat. In 2024, I mean, we were there when we had to pick up people lying along the road who were suffering from heat exhaustion. There's no need to, in the middle of the day when the temperatures will again probably it's close to 50 degrees, there is enough water points along the way. There's enough cool points along the way. So please, people, do not go out in the middle of the day amongst all the crowds, especially on the day of Arafah. A lot of our Hujjaj want to go to Jabal Rahmah. But if it's going to be close to 50 degrees and it's humid and the crowds are packing the roads, delay till either later, don't even go there if you're not feeling up to it.
So, Doctor, the next question I have really does cause some emotions and bring some debate. What is the safest method for delaying menstruation? We know a lot of the ibadat that takes place during Hajj, whether it be your Umrah, your Tawaful Ziyarah, even your Tawaful Wida, you need to be in a state of cleanliness. A lot of women, I mean, it's just natural that they have their menstruation at that time. What would your advice be for women who would probably have their menstruation during that time?
Okay, firstly, we're assuming that we're referring to ladies who have no other medical issues, no? Such like high blood pressure, sugar, and so forth, or what we call deep vein thrombosis. Now, before someone leaves, the best thing would be to see the doctor or the gynecologist, because it's easy then to manipulate the height according to what you know your normal period is. there's plenty of medications that can be used, such as the normal type of oral contraception, where you can basically just delay the height by a week, for example. So that's the first part, is to see a doctor before you leave, and then try to make sure that you don't have a height during the 5 days of Hajj. So before we leave that topic, we've got to bear in mind that Nabi Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's wife Aisha had a height on Arafah. So which better example do we have as Muslims have, that you do not need to be so-called clean when you're on Arafah? Yes, you need only to be out of a state of menses when you are doing your tawaf ziyar, which is the only ritual for which you need to be so-called clean. Now, if someone cannot delay their flight, for example, they've got their height and they're leaving tomorrow, for example, and there's no ways that they can delay their flight by a couple of days, there are medications that can be used in Saudi Arabia. They can see a doctor there who will prescribe something called Primulat N, which can then basically decrease or even stop the bleeding for a couple of days. But the best thing would be to do something before you leave in South Africa in the first place. And then also to speak to one of the alims that will be accompanying the South African Hujjaj. For example, the ruling for the Shafis is slightly different to that of the Hanafis. And there's a whole debate about what should be done and what should not be done. But from a medical perspective, do something before you leave. If it's really a crisis in Saudi Arabia, see a doctor who can prescribe tablets that can stop the bleeding for a couple of hours or even a day or two. Then the lady takes a ghusl, pads herself, does the tawaf, and then speaks to our alim about, is there a penalty to be paid because of the state that she was possibly in?
Really interesting. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Salim Parker. I think it's really valuable advices you've given to our Hujjaj who are there and the prospective Hujjaj who will be going in the next few years, inshallah. Jazakallah so much for your time.
It's an absolute pleasure. And to those Hujjaj who have left or are leaving soon, Hajj Mabrur Makbul, inshallah. Allah grant you the best and make it easy.
To our viewers out there, we hope you enjoyed this segment today. I think it's really important advices given by Dr. Salim Parker, somebody who's been on Hajj many times and spent a lot of time, as he mentioned, in the Sahu clinics. And it will be a bit different this year. As we spoke to Shane Isub yesterday, things are going to be a bit different for many South African Hujjaj, but let's make the most of it. The Hujjaj who are there, you are the special invited guests of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we make dua that Allah grants you a Hajj Makbul and a Hajj Mabrur. From all of us in the team, until tomorrow, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
ودي لي سلامي يا رايح للحرم، وادعي لي وسلم لي على هادي الأمم. انظر للكعبة يا محلاها، نور وجلال يغشاها. انظر